Welcome once again to another Chess.com podcast. I apologise for the poor sound quality this week. That'll be addressed in the next podcast, if you can just bear with it this once. And I'll make up for it by showing you ideas and combinations I had in mind in a recent game of mine. It's from last season. It's from the final of a trophy that we carry out in the Manchester League. And I'm black, and inexplicitly here I've gone a piece down against an opponent I should be beating any day of the week. Really, not a poor player by any stretch of the imagination. Just not a player who I would feel threatened by according to his rating. But he used a great opening against me, and deservedly from the opening got a piece up and a much better position. But I say position, if we look at the pawn structure, I've got the better pawn structure here, and now it's white to move, and white played knight to f3, trying to activate its pieces. But if we look at my pawn structure, I've got quite a strong control of the centre, and particularly the squares g4, f4, e4 and d4, which act almost as a bit of a barrier, because the white king is going to have to come up in towards these pawns to get his rook active. So what would be the way forward here? Well, in a position like this, I'm often looking to leave my opponent with the bishop and a knight, and hoping that he doesn't know how to mate with a bishop and a knight. And that's the kind of negative mindset I was getting into during this game. But before I completely start to swap up all the pawns and try and get down to this knight and bishop versus king endgame, I had one more tactical shot, which was to activate my rook and try and capture a piece. So I played king to d7, and the white king came to d2. Very sensible play. Rook to a8, so I grabbed the initiative, and here my opponent made a mistake. Now the best move my opponent should make here is rook to c1. The reason of playing rook to c1 is, although it's a defensive move, it stops any combinations I may have. But I guess when you're white and you're a piece up, you're not looking to defend, you're probably looking to attack, and unfortunately that's what my opponent did g4. And I only had 20 minutes on my clock here, but I stopped to think for a good 10 minutes. And what do I do here? Do I start to swap off pieces, or do I have a combination I could carry out? Now have a think and see, is there a combination here that I could carry out that leads to an advantageous result? Well, the move is fairly clear, I hope, which is to activate the only piece I have active, and that's rook a2 check. And in fact, this is a draw now. But we could see if the white rook was on c1, then simply rook to c2 would have been a defence, and I would have had to have swapped off pieces and hoped my opponent didn't know how to finish a tough endgame. Now there are two possible combinations here. The king is pretty much forced onto e3, although that isn't what my opponent did. And this is how I thought. This is my thought process. The king comes to e3, and move order is very important here. I play bishop takes c3. And the thinking behind bishop takes c3 is that if b takes c5, then it's a mating 2. f4, the king has nowhere to run, has to come to e4, and then rook e2 would be a very sweet end to this game. The only other option would be to play d4, and after e takes d4, knight takes d4, simply a case of exchanging pieces here. Bishop takes d4, c takes d4, rook a3, king comes through, f4 for example, and white's going nowhere on either the king side or the queen side, and black shouldn't have any trouble drawing this position at all. And they're the two combinations that I thought through. The third one I looked at briefly and dismissed because I felt it wasn't going to occur in the game. Fortunately for my opponent, it did, and inexplicitly he played the move king e1, and that ended the game. After rook a1, my opponent looked resigned but didn't. Plays king back to e2, rook takes h1, and I had a 1 endgame.